what would you say to a business leader who doesn't think that either disability or accessibility is a priority? Because, like you said, it's not very trendy, it's not very popular. I mean, unfortunately, how do what do you say to business leaders like that?
Well, it oftentimes begins with some kind of a business case, right? So building that business case for them, making them understand what that's about. So a significant piece of this is just talking about neurodiversity as an example, and how, statistically speaking, it's roughly 20% of the population that
Yep.
self-identifies as being neurodivergent with, one condition or situation or another, or multiple ones. And then also 27% of the population self-identifies as having a disability. So from the perspective of a leader in an organization, a people manager, someone leading a business, for instance,
Right.
with employees, as soon as that particular leader recognizes that they have, hiring policies or practices that are meant to be
Right.
equal and welcoming of everyone, then they should have a certain number of their employee or workforce that has disabilities as well. It may not be 20% or 27%, but even if it was 10% of their workforce, knowing that that 10% can't potentially perform to the full extent of their potential because of barriers that are unknowingly created within the business, most leaders would want to address that and create an environment that is more conducive to people being successful and contributing to the full extent of their potential. So that's how the conversations start most of the time. To me, the way that I approach this is from the standpoint of, it really does begin with the leaders. So they have to understand what we're talking about, which means discovering different aspects of like I've put together this framework, if you will, this model that helps leaders walk through the different steps, if you will, of really building this understanding, which, like, I work with, like, I call them the 15 keys of inclusive speaking. And the very first one is just understanding disability. Like, what are we talking about? And what does that mean? What does that represent? And then we go through different aspects, such as, disability etiquette. Like, how do you address the question of disability? What words can you use? What words can't you
Right.
use? How do you behave with someone with disability? What's different? What shouldn't be different? Things like stigma, things like prejudice, things like, emergency preparedness in the business. If you are, say, on the 10th floor of the building, and you have different emergency procedures that are in place, in case there's a fire, for instance, what are you going to be doing about your employee, say Steve, who's in a wheelchair, if you can't use the elevators when
Right.
there's a fire? Like, what is the plan to help Steve evacuate the building when there are 10 flights of stairs to go down? Like, things like that. We talk about inclusive communication, which is a huge piece. So you mentioned my book earlier, The Inclusive Speaker. That entire book is dedicated to this idea of inclusive communication. So how do we communicate with our workforce, with our target audience or market out there, so that they feel included, don't feel excluded from their conversations because of the words that we use or the way that we present the material that we leverage. Different things like that, representation, or allyship, even like being an ally for people with disabilities within the organization, leveraging your privileges to be able to help them, like, create a space where people can feel more confident and build the trust, so that people actually want to come forward and disclose what their needs are, so that we can provide the right accommodations. Like that's the kind of thing that we work
Okay.
with.